Welcome to the Adventures in Alchemy podcast, where we share tips, techniques, and true stories to support you in using the law of attraction and alchemy to create magic and live the life of your dreams. Here's your host, the founder of DailyAlchemy.com, Michelle Martin Dobbins.
Hello, Happy New Year, a little bit late. This is Michelle with DailyAlchemy.com. And this is an episode of Adventures in Alchemy. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Year of the Warrior. As my year this year is, I have labeled the Year of the Warrior. So before I go into that very deeply, I just want to encourage you, if you do not choose a word or a theme of the year, to consider doing it this year. It's something that I've done for a long time. And I'll admit, when I first started doing it, I would do it and then I would totally forget about it. Not very long into the year. And so it didn't have a whole lot of meaning. And about the time, I think this is the fourth year, I've been using Leonie Dawson's Shining Gear and Life and Biz workbooks. And it's part of the workbook to write it in there. And I'm going back to that workbook and referring to it. But I also started putting it in places that I would see. I have Post-it notes. I have virtual Post-it notes on my laptop. So I would put the word there for it to be seen. Usually I would write it on real Post-it notes and stick it on my desktop computer, my office, on my bathroom mirror, so that it's kind of top of mind. And when you do that, then you're much more likely to kind of keep coming back to that theme or that word for the year. And I'll tell you, there are different methods to come up with a theme or a word for the year. But I personally like to kind of spend a little bit of time just meditating and asking for the word to come. And sometimes it comes in meditation, but usually it doesn't. Usually I do the meditation and then the word pops in my head when I'm taking the shower, or I start seeing it everywhere. As with Warrior this year, I started seeing it everywhere. And usually I know that I've hit the right word whenever my conscious brain says, yuck, no, that's not the word I want. Please let me pick another. Because I know one year I had brave and I didn't want that one. And last year was allow, which seems so much easier than being brave. But apparently I feel like I did better being brave than I did allowing. And so this year is Warrior. And so I'm starting to go off onto that tangent. But yeah, I encourage you to play with and see, if you don't have a word, to just see if you can and how you can kind of come back to that to guide you through the year and what you want to feel and what you want to accomplish this year. For me, Warrior, it sounds like a fighter. But to me, a warrior is actually much more than a fighter. But I am a person who tends to avoid conflict at all costs, all costs, to a point of craziness. So part of my goals is to, did you hear me stutter on that? Oh my goodness, is to embrace conflict more. I have a book that I just picked up, and I don't have it with me, but I think it's called The Magic of Conflict or something. So I'm really looking forward to kind of delving into that and seeing how conflict can be used to improve your life. Because to me, it's just always been conflict is bad and we need to find a way around it as much as possible. And so I'm really hardcore looking at changing that story. But I'm also thinking of a warrior not as someone necessarily who fights, but a person who stands their ground. And even more importantly than standing their ground necessarily with other people, which, is important. And I'm finding out as, things are kind of crazy in our world, that standing our ground and, sticking to our values and standing up for other people sometimes too, who can't stand up for themselves, who are marginalized in some way. And it's easier for me in this culture, with the privileges of being a white middle-class female, to stand up for certain other people. So yeah, warrior to me means more character growth than anything. because growing my character is going to be necessary in order to stand my ground and stick with my beliefs. And as I've said, I'm a person who has tended to avoid conflict. So this is really an interesting thing for me because I feel like I've actually had to kind of come out to certain people by just saying what I think, because I tend to just, yeah, that's great, and not necessarily say what I think. And not that I necessarily need to share my opinions with everybody all the time, but sometimes, just going along with what somebody says and letting them believe that I believe differently than I do, it doesn't feel good anymore. It doesn't feel authentic. And it's not warrioring up, which is one thing that I really want to do. So I wanted to share just a few other things around warrior that I feel can be really beneficial to most anyone if you're on a path, as I am, of personal growth. And one of the books that I'm working with, and if you get my newsletter, and if you don't, you can go to dailyalchemy.com and you can sign up there. There's a booklet on Get Your Happy Back, and you get that and you'll get my newsletter. And my newsletter it's in a state of flux as I'm changing myself and trying to be of more service in better ways. But so a lot of times lately, it's just kind of been a letter of throwing things on the table of what's going on for me and how that can relate and be helpful to other people. But I did talk about in my newsletter how I didn't really stick with my word last year, which was allow, and how I'm not doing the best starting out with the warrior. And I mentioned this book that I'm going to tell you a bit about, but I feel like I'm definitely on that first step, right? And we tend to beat ourselves up. And the first step is awareness. And so I'm becoming more and more aware when I take actions that are not warrior-like. And so instead of beating myself up, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm aware. Now, how can I make that better? How can I choose to do it differently the next time? And, some of that's training, right? Warrior training, battle training, as it were, to know, what am I going to say if I'm put in this similar situation again? So that is the task. But the book is called Warrior Goddess Training, Become the Woman You're Meant to Be. And I think more women than men listen to this podcast, but I know there are some men. And, you may or may not feel okay with picking up this book. And there are some things in it that are definitely female-oriented, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff for anybody, I think. But if it is not your cup of tea, I'm going to be talking about some other warrior books too coming up. But I'm really playing with this book, and I've got the workbook, which I haven't started a lot, but I'm just doing some of the exercises. I'm trying to go through slowly, but there was a section that I marked, and of course I've lost it. So if you hear me, I'm flipping pages because I wanted to share with you some of the things that I'm not going to put this on all, but a lot of people tend to do to get out of stepping up and being who we are. And we have these coping strategies, and this is from the book. This is not my stuff, but I just wanted to share with you briefly to see, because there are 4 coping strategies that she lists in the book. And I found that I do all 4 of them. Controllers, people who can try to control everything to make themselves feel safe and believe that their way is the right way. And while I find myself believing that way, I will give up control to get out of conflict. But there's some things I really do like to control. Distractors. I'm raising my hand up here nice and high. One of the things that I did for New Year's was take Facebook and Twitter, the apps, off my phone, because I found that I was using them as a numbing distractor. And so and now I'm like looking at things I never used to look at on my phone. I don't get too sucked into Instagram, but I open it more now than I did. And I'm looking at email and I'm like, how do I I'm actually thinking of taking email off my phone, and I wish I could take the news off that pops up every time, because like, why am I reading this article if I really don't care about it? Why? To distract myself, to keep myself from working on the things that are important and becoming the person that I want to be. So, isolators are people who kind of hide and stay out of any uncomfortable situation where they might be triggered, or if they're triggered, they take off. And I'm kind of like that in a way, because I'm pretty introverted, and I do have a strong connection to spirit, which is a good thing. But also, you have to know, like, are you isolating right now because it's good for you? Or are you doing it because you're afraid of reaching out and connecting with other people? And the last one are pleasers. And, as a person who avoids conflict, I am a big pleaser, big people pleaser. You want to make everybody happy. And generally, when you try to do that, the one person who is not happy is you. And you just can't make everybody happy. So you definitely have to tune in and follow your values and do what is most important to you, and that's not being selfish. Because some of the things that are important to me are giving back to the community, but doing it in a way that works for my family and that works for my stress level. And yeah. So, but those are 4 of the coping strategies that a lot of women work with: controlling, distracting, isolating, pleasing. So I'm just really taking some time here to look and see where I do these things and becoming aware and creating strategies for not doing it. If it's, some of my strategies are just learning ways to speak up and having a plan for that. Also, I'm working on doing much less distracting activities by taking things off my phone and actually just making a rule for myself that at 7 o'clock I just go plug it in and I don't look at it anymore for the rest of the evening. And I'm trying to get myself to bump that back to 6 o'clock. And, working on people pleasing, that's definitely another one. And what was the other one? Isolating. I'm making some plans to do some live Reiki with some Reiki shares and some actually Reiki, I don't know what the word would be, but where people who do Reiki come and donate their time to raise money for other organizations. So those are kind of my steps to put some skin in the game, as it were, to becoming a warrior this year, a warrior goddess. I like even better. So you may be interested. I mean, if you're interested at all in growth as a person, especially if you're female, I highly recommend this book. I may be talking about it a little bit more during the year, because it has just really just been I'm not even through the book, and I have like dog-eared pages and underlines and notes, and I'm taking steps from it. It gives you some really concrete steps that you can take, A, to gain awareness, and B, to change your behavior and your thought patterns, ultimately, which is probably the most important, right? Is to change your thought patterns, because they lead to your behavior, to become the person that you're meant to be. And, I think so many of us are closer to that person than we know, but we beat ourselves up and we don't just allow ourselves to live our truth. And so that is my goal for this new year. And if it's yours, that's great and wonderful. I'd love to connect with you and talk all kinds of warrior goddess training. And even if it's not, think about what your word would be. What is important to you? What is your soul calling out to you this year to grow into? And I do a little bit of this, but if you're looking for a good group, I did mention Leonie and her workbooks, and I'm an affiliate for her, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I just love them. And right now she's having an unprecedented 50% off sale. Depends on when you're listening to this. This is January 2017. but she has a great deal going on. So, if you're interested in doing some work and planning for the year, that's a great place to do it. But she also has a free Facebook group for people who work with her workbooks. I'm sure if you go to Facebook and search, you can find it. And there are a lot of people who post in there their word of the year. So you can get a lot of great inspiration there. Okay, so I would love to hear what you decide your word of the year is. And if you have worked with the Warrior Goddess training or are just now doing it, I would love to hear your insights on that too. So you can reach me. I'm Michelle Martin Dobbins at dailyalchemy.com. And if you go there, you can find my Facebook, my Twitter, an email link, Google+, all those things. I will say, most of those things are not on my phone anymore, so I check them a whole lot less. And it feels very freeing, so you may want to give it a try yourself. It is kind of liberating to not have to know what everybody that I went to high school with are doing today. I love all the people I went to high school with, by the way. No, but I'm not picking there. I'm just saying it is kind of liberating to just be more in the now, right now, with my family, my friends, or whatever work that I'm doing in the present time. So have a wonderful day. Go out and create some magic. Namaste and big hugs until next time. Would you like some help creating more magic in your life? I've got a ton of freebies and goodies for you. They're all tucked away inside my magical freebie vault. You can get free access, though. You just have to go to www.dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault. Again, that's dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault. And when you get there, you can just plug in your name and email and you will get instant access to all kinds of goodies. There are daily and weekly manifesting planners, the How to Shift Your Vibe in 5 Minutes e-kit that has audios and a workbook. There are moon manifesting planners and daily love lists and money trackers and all kinds of goodies right there. I didn't want to make you have to go to a bunch of different pages and sites and wait for certain freebies to come out. So I just took all of my freebies and put them in one place where you could just sign up one time and download any of them that you want at any time that you needed. So you can just head on over to dailyalchemy.com/magical-freebie-vault and download them today. Have a magical day.
Thanks for listening to the Adventures in Alchemy podcast. Connect with me on thedailyalchemy.com or Facebook at facebook.com/Michelle Dobbins author. Join us next time for even more magical life tips.